Can you hear us?
Okay. Yes.
There.
Good. We're good. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties. You'd think after 10,000 Zooms these last 2 months, I'd have it down, but apparently not.
I agree. Sometimes I feel like it just stops working on me and I have to get out and just get all the way back in because I can't figure it out.
Well, normally I don't get the office. Jay gets the office and I'm working in the kitchen. So I've got my kitchen set up. But today Jay's taking the day off. So I get the office.
Awesome.
That's why the lighting looks so good today. It's like professional Jay Papasan lighting.
I was just thinking that we're back in our office and I was like, wow, that looks so much better than I do at home.
I know. It's all about the lighting. 100%.
Well, Thank you so much for joining us today.
Of course. My pleasure.
I've been telling them for the past week or so how excited I am to have you on here, but I'll let you introduce yourself. I know most of them know who you are, but if you, for those that don't, want to tell us a little bit about you and your business, and then whatever you'd like to talk about, how you're doing, how your business is doing, have at it.
Okay, great. Well, hi everyone. I'm Wendy Papasan, and I run a real estate team here in Austin, Texas. We have a couple other locations. One's Dallas, Texas, one's Houston, Texas, and then we have an expansion partner in Minneapolis. We sell a couple hundred homes a year, and I'm actually on my Zoom promotional tour this week. And I'm promoting our new podcast, which is Empire Builders, which is, has anybody heard of Think Like a CEO? Have you listened to that one? Yeah. And then maybe the One Thing podcast. Anybody listen to that? Yeah. So we're kind of in that same suite, affiliated with Keller Williams, and it's called Empire Building. It's going to launch June 1st. So it will be available wherever you can find podcasts, and it's going to be on how to build a big business and even a bigger life, which I'm excited. And I've got 3 co-hosts who are kick butt. Sarah Reynolds, who's the #1 real estate agent in the whole country, and Via Williams, who is the director of growth for the #2 real estate agent in the country with Keller Williams, and then me, and then Seychelle Engelhard, who's also awesome. She's from Dallas. So should be super fun. So yeah. Well, I know we talked about me talking about the one thing, but you know, let's just, what do you guys want to hear about? I'm happy to make this like a flexible kind of thing. What are you guys struggling with? You know, I know you don't need to hear about cutting expenses or doubling down on lead generation. I personally have heard enough of that. I'm tired of hearing that, even though I know it's true. So let's just get the chat box going and you tell me what you want to talk about today. You guys took time out of your schedule. You could be doing something else. You could be watching Netflix right now.
One thing I know we've been talking a lot about is, what is life going to look like after this? What do you think real estate is going to look like after this pandemic passes? What is your team going to continue doing that maybe you started doing during all of this? What do you think this is going to look like for us?
Yeah, well, I think it is going to look different in a good way. I can remember when I started in real estate in 2009. And how many of you are pretty new to the business? Anybody? I got some newbies there. Couple. Some of you have been in business for a while. Who was in business in 2009? Yeah, a lot of you. You're warriors. Yeah, well, I remember when I started in 2009, that's when DocuSign for contracts was just coming out. And my broker and compliance director was completely against it. She was 100% rallying against it in our market center, which, you know, I was a new agent. So I thought, well, that's weird. Why wouldn't you want a way to like get signatures without having to drive around all downtown? And I would guess that almost every single person listening this morning is using some kind of electronic signatures for their contract. Is there anyone who's not? Anybody who's not? No, everybody is. And so like that was an example of a shift that came because of technology that has become fixed in our industry. And so I think we're going to see lots of things like that. Like I know for us, we really pivoted to the virtual tour. And what that looked like for us was, you know, we got to do 2 virtual tours in an hour or less. And normally when I do an open house, it takes me an hour to put my signs up. I'm there for 3 hours. It takes me an hour to pull my signs down. And now I can say to my sellers, hey, we have a choice. Would you like to do a virtual open house, or would you like to do a regular open house? A regular open house requires you to be out of your home for 3 to 4 hours every single weekend until it sells. Or a virtual house, open house, requires you to be out of your house for about 15 minutes while I record the video that I can share over and over again on Facebook or to my sphere or whatever that looks like. So do you think the seller is going to like having those options?
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Are we still going to do open houses? For sure. It's a great way to get business.
Yeah.
But especially for some of us who maybe don't have the time, or the sellers who don't have the inclination, it's nice to have choices like that. And I think this pivot is going to be what that's all about, because the way the market works is the market is always moving towards what the customer wants and desires. And in a way, in the real estate industry, we've been really slow to adopt some of those things compared to other industries. And so finally, I think this is really going to push us into that era where, we pivoted 100% and we created slide decks for our agents so that we could do a virtual listing presentation on Zoom, so that we could do a virtual buyer presentation on Zoom. And for sure, some of our presentations moving forward will be in someone's home. And sometimes the seller just wants you to do a presentation and doesn't really want you to come in the home. They maybe would just want to find out who you are and what you're all about. And then you don't have to drive. I live in Austin, Texas, so we have to drive everywhere. There's not as much traffic now, but normally it can be a 45-minute drive to a listing appointment. So I just save 2 hours with my family, right? And also the seller may not want, a stranger coming in their home. So I just think what we're going to see is just more choice for the customer, because that's how the market always goes. Yeah. So I think it's going to be great both ways, but it's a struggle. It's a struggle to pivot. It's a struggle to change. I'm sure there's some of you who are struggling with the idea of changing to command. You're struggling with the idea of having to do all these new things virtually. But the reality is, if we don't change and adapt, then we will lose business. I mean, I think about, you guys heard that JCPenney filed for bankruptcy, right? Absolutely. The interesting thing is it's not the pandemic that caused JCPenney to file from bankruptcy. Can anyone guess what it is?
They didn't change. They didn't make the changes they needed to service their sphere of clients.
Yeah. And it's been going on for many years. If you look at the history of JCPenney's, it's been a slow decline for them because they've never made the pivot. They've just been operating under the same old model that they had when they started, I think in 1908, right? Which served them very well for 80 plus years. Even 90 years. And then sometime in the 90s and the early 2000s, that old model didn't work. And all of these big retailers who had 70% of their sales were because of foot traffic, they're all struggling right now. But it's not just because of the pandemic. It's just been a slow decline by not jumping into like the online retail world, right? And so, some of us may be in that same boat. So what we have to do is we just have to, every day we have to just put our shift mindset hat on. And I'll just tell you, it's hard. I just had a conversation with my coaching client. That's why I was a little bit late. I'm sorry, but it's just a struggle. I'll just be honest. It's a struggle to make all these changes, and I want to acknowledge it. And the reality is a lot of people are going to quit. Hopefully none of you guys. But what happens when a lot of our coworkers quit is that at the end of it, those of us that have persevered, right, and struggled through it and adapted, is that there's more business for the rest of us. So I know that in, the worst year of the last recession in about 2009, something like 30% of the real estate agents in the country disappeared. No, it was 30% of all business went away. It was a decline in business. And at the same time, more than 30% of all the agents dropped out, because we know a lot of our peers, they work part-time. They do, 2 deals a year. They get their license to sell their own home. But what happened in 2009 was more agents actually dropped out than the business that went away. And so anybody who stuck around, there was more business for them. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah.
this is just a fact, right? So if you're feeling like quitting, yeah, I get it. It's a struggle. And I'm feeling, I feel that way too. I've certainly had days where I'm just like, I don't want to do this. It's too hard. And if we can stick around, because honestly, we don't know what's going to happen. Everything's opening up now. It might shut down again. We don't know, right? It might be a 6-month thing. It might be an 18-month thing. It might be a 2-year thing. And the longer it lasts and the longer we stick with it, the more we're all going to be able to come out and take market share at the end. And that's just the numbers. And if you guys do what Keller Williams is telling you to do, which is double down on your business, make your care calls, right? Reach out to people, put the pedal to the metal, then guess what? You're going to be that far ahead of everyone else. But it's really just about sticking around. So
On those days when you have, when you don't want to do all the things you're supposed to do, have you found anything, whether it's a part of a daily routine or a one thing strategy, or what keeps you going at the times when this just seems like too much?
Yeah. Well, for me, this is, first of all, yes, there's a pandemic on top of being a realtor, but I'll just say there have been a lot of times in the last 11 years where I have wanted to quit because this business is very hard. It's emotionally draining. It takes a toll on your family. And yet at the same time, the rewards are many. And so the things that I'm doing now are actually the same things that I've always done in order to keep my energy up as a real estate agent. And that is just following the personal productivity plan. And that can be found in the Millionaire Real Estate Agent. It's also in the One Thing. And what that looks like is it's just 5 things that you do every day. And this is not something I invented. I got this from the Millionaire Real Estate Agent. This is Gary Keller's personal productivity plan, but he is a mentor of mine. And so he's got a great life. He's very successful. He's a billionaire. So I tend to he's a model for me. I don't do everything that he does, but a lot of things. And the productive person's personal productivity plan is really 5 things that you need to do before noon every day. And what this does is, especially now, if you're at home teaching kids, like you can't always win the whole day, but if you can win the morning, that's huge. And what that looks like is, number 1 is get your spiritual energy together, right? And spiritual energy for me is meditation, prayer, gratefulness. So I start every day, I get up before everybody else in my house, and I think about what I'm grateful for. And I typically, on the mornings that I'm not exercising, I'm reading a book, right? And so for me, that just calms me down. And then if I need to meditate, if things are really crazy, I'll pull out my Calm app on my iPhone and I'll meditate. So that's the first thing. That's to get spiritual energy. The second one is physical energy. And what that looks like is good nutrition, right? So eating a good, healthy breakfast and physical exercise. I know for me, I couldn't do what I do if I don't exercise. Plus I love to eat, so I have to work out. Otherwise I'd be super fat. And so that's, for me, that's super important for that physical energy, right? So you got your spiritual energy, you got your physical energy, and then you need to get your emotional energy. And I know for a lot of us, I mean, who's a people person? Anybody? Nobody's raising their hand. Okay, great. Yeah. I love having people around. I'm lonely. That's why I'm here. You know, I'm doing all these Zooms. I'm like, sign me up. I miss people. And I live with 3 people who are introverted, and 2 of them are teenagers, and one's a writer. So it's lonely around here. I keep walking around like, hey, let's play a board game. And so that emotional energy is very important, especially for those of us that are people, right? And so what that looks like is, you know, either, you know, hugging your children, hugging your spouse, hugging your partner. And I'm sure some of you guys live alone, and that's a struggle. I mean, that is a real struggle that people who are living alone are dealing with, is that. So whatever way you can do that, you know, I know Dawn's been like reaching out to her Facebook community and getting emotional energy that way, calling people on the phone, you know, whatever that looks like for you, however you can like pump yourself up, I think is really important. So you got your spiritual energy, you got your physical energy, you've got your emotional energy, and then you've got your, what I call your time energy, right? And so what that looks like is am I time blocking my day? Especially when you feel like maybe your business is down and you don't have a schedule, you can't go to the office, right? You can still create a schedule for yourself, right? And follow it, right? Again, we're just going to win the morning. So we're going to time block the morning, right? So that's your time energy. And then the last one is your business energy. Are you winning every day with your business? And for us, that means we do scripts and role play as a team every morning at 9:30. And then at 10 o'clock, we get on the phone, or we start texting people. And that's when we do our lead generation care calls. And that is our business energy, because I know, honestly, what the business I have today never correlates with the activities that I'm doing today. The activities that I'm doing today are going to show up in 30, 60, 90 days. So the business coming in today has nothing to do with what I'm doing right now. And I think that's one of the weird things about sales, right? It's like, well, I worked all day, but I didn't make any money, right? The business that you have closing today is actually something that you did 30, 60, 90 days ago. They're completely disconnected. And it's that habit of the business energy that sets us up for success. Because even if we don't get a lead, we don't get a nurture, nothing happens that day, at least we can feel good. We can feel in control knowing we did something, right? And whatever that looks like for you. So I know when I started in the business, I was working part-time because my kids went to daycare in the afternoon. So my goal was to reach out just to 5 people every day, right? Don't tell Gary Keller I said this, but it's really just 5 people every day. Honestly, 4 hours of lead gen, that's amazing. And if you're doing 4 hours of lead gen, you're going to crush it. The reality is I never had time for that. So whatever that looks like for you, because success is different than you think it is. It's not having a bold 100 one day. That's not what success looks like. Success looks like repeatable activities done over time, right? And so everything that I'm talking about in terms of your spiritual energy, your physical energy, your emotional energy, your time energy, and your business energy, doing that day after day after day after day after day is what turns you into a successful person, right? And those 5 contacts a day, right? 5 connects, that's talking to 5 people, texting 5 people. If you've got more time, do more. You're just going to set yourself up for that. So just winning the morning, guys, just winning every single day and feeling that by 11 o'clock, you know what? I did my job. And that could be boring. Honestly, I don't feel like doing that every day. You know, I'm somebody, I like to move around. I like to do different stuff. I don't like being cooped up in my house. I hate it, actually. And yet I know I have to do my job every day, which is to connect with 5 people. Well, for me, my job is I have to do more than that now. But that's what success looks like. Repeatable activities done over time. And then you look up all of a sudden 11 years later, and you've got people asking you to speak in their Zoom calls during a global pandemic. Who knew, right? My first year in production, right? My very first year, I had a very small goal. I had been a stay-at-home mom for 5 years, making absolutely no money. And my first goal for that year was so low, it was laughable. I said, I want to make $15,000 this year. 15, not 50, 15, which is like, think big, aim high, Wendy, come on. Which for us at the time was a lot of money. And I thought I could buy an investment property with it. That's why I wanted to be in real estate. And here I am, right? 11 years later, doing over $2 million in gross commission in GCI, in commission checks every year. Right. So I never, even though, you know, I live with the co-author of The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, that was never in my head. I never thought, oh, someday I'll be selling hundreds of homes a year. No, that was never my thought. But I was like, I know I need to do my job every day. I got to do my job. I got to do my job. Got to do my job. And sometimes I would come home and Jay would be like, how was your day? And I'd say, well, today was boring. And he would say, okay, what happened? Well, I did my job. Because it can be boring. You know, I don't have the kind of personality that likes to just sit around and do the same thing all the time. And yet, you know, you need to do what's required in order to get what you want. Right. So just continue reaching out, making those care calls. It's really everything. You know, I ran into I was actually with my best friend, and we were out for a walk, and we were down behind our house at the Greenbelt, and we ran into a friend of hers who was pulling a kayak out of the water. And she said to him, you know, hey, how are you doing? And he said, well, actually, I went blind for a month during this pandemic. And we both were just like, what? We were just taken aback. And it turned out that he was getting ready to go into the to the doctor for cataract surgery. And because of the pandemic, cataract surgery became kind of optional. And something just happened. He told me the name of it, but I can't remember. But sometimes when you have cataracts, this happens where you just go basically blind overnight. And so here he was, a very able-bodied guy. He lives alone. He's actually is my friend's neighbor and a good friend of hers. And thankfully, he's fine. He ended up getting the surgery, and obviously was kayaking. So he was, you know, his surgery was, he ended up with 20/15 vision. But I can't tell you how bad she felt by not reaching out to him. Of course, she didn't know. And yet, you know, she's making care calls, but she's like, wow, I didn't even think about this person. So, you know, I'm sure you've got people that you're taking care of, you know, maybe elderly people or people in nursing homes or whoever they are. But making those care calls to everyone is just so important, because we just never know what's going to happen to people. We just never know. So that was just like, that just hit home for me. I was like, yeah, I need to continue doing this, because I don't know who's suffering right now. And guys, you know, us as realtors, we are leaders. We are the keepers of community in our cities, in our towns. And the thing is you guys have heard about the DISC, right? The DISC, the personality test. Has anybody ever heard of that? Yeah. So 70% of the world is what I would call is what's called a high S, right? And what do high S's value more than anything, if you know that? Stability, safety, security, right? And most of us, we have leadership qualities. If you're any kind of entrepreneur, you probably have some D, you probably have some I, right? Most of the world is an S. 70-80% of the world is a lot more afraid than you are probably right now. And so as leaders in your communities, you guys are obligated to do this. If you're not making your care calls, right? If you're not reaching out to people, you're really doing your community a disservice, because you probably have more comfortability with what's going on in the world than the 70-80% of the rest of the world. Does that make sense? So we need to be the ones who are like, it's going to be okay. Whatever happens, it is going to be okay. We can't control it, right? We've never been, it's really no different than the world's ever been. Like, we don't know if we're living or dying tomorrow, and we never have, right? We don't know what's going to happen. We never have. We can only do what we can do every day. And really, if you can control that morning, right? Get up, right? Do your spiritual energy, your physical energy, your emotional energy, your time energy, and your business energy. If you can knock all that out every single day, you're going to win. You're going to win the day, right? And that's all we can control anytime. Control's an illusion. We like to think we have control, but we don't. The only thing that we can control is what we do every day and how we think about things. That's it. We cannot control anything else, and we never have been. So it's no different than it's ever been. Is it scarier? Yeah. Can we go down a dark tunnel where we're thinking about things, where we get on the news, we're watching stuff? Yeah. But that doesn't serve anyone. That doesn't serve your people. It doesn't serve your family. That doesn't serve your big why, right? So that's my soapbox.
Well, I think we have time for another question if Wendy has a couple of minutes. So
of course, yeah.
A question they'd like to ask, you can put it in the chat or yourself, either way.
Wendy, what's your one thing?
Well, my one thing this week, I'll be honest, is if you guys are not on the Pivot Shift Ahead page, we are doing a takeover, and it's really funny, and you need to go there right now. So my one thing this week is entertaining the 72,000 people that are on there. It's hilarious. You guys need to go there. Pivot Shift Ahead.
It's worth it.
Have you been watching it?
Yes, it's hilarious. So
Date night was priceless last night. So.
What's that?
Date night was priceless last night.
Yes. Yeah. So that's my one thing this week. But really my one thing in my business is about 30% of our business is agent to agent referral. So that's the part that I really own. And, obviously I'm here to help you guys, but that's part of it too. So if you know of anyone that wants to move to Texas, let me know. And then I've been doing my care calls and texts too, because I know that there are people out there that might need help. Great question.
Thank you.
Do more because of the need to pivot, or is that something that's part of your routine as a rainmaker anyways?
So I would say, if I'm really honest, these last couple of years as my business has grown and I've just gotten a bit busier and kind of out of the business, I've been doing less of it, but this shift has really shown me that I just need to get back into it. Yeah. So it's been good for me just to understand that, like, I could never let that go. Right. I need to keep reaching out to people, and I have done it definitely inside of Keller Williams for sure. And yet I need to do it in my own life as well. And so, that's what success looks like, guys. It's not just like you're going straight up, right? It's like you're failing forward. And if you don't do what you're supposed to do one day, then don't get discouraged. Just real estate is fall down, skin your knee, get back up, fall down, skin your knee, get back up, fall down. Yeah, Dawn knows. We had this conversation, right? Where I shouted at her.
Yes, we did. It was slightly uncomfortable.
I'm sorry about that.
That's all right. I needed it.
Yeah. So, and that's the truth, right? There's a lot of fail forward. There have been a lot of days where I'm like, this sucks. I'm out of here. And that's not what success looks like. Success doesn't look like bouncing from thing to thing, sticking with it, doing the hard stuff, being bored, right? And then all of a sudden you look up and you're like, wow, I'm really helping people.
What else? Any other questions?
What does your team look like?
So there's about 17 of us, and we are in a few cities. I'm pretty heavy on the operations side. So I have a director of operations, and she's kind of the hub for everything. I have a part-time, I call her the director of growth, and she really she helps hire and train and manage our agents. And then I've got a part-time marketing manager, and she's part-time just because she came back from maternity leave. Actually, she had her baby right when the quarantine started. So she's been quarantined with her baby. And then I have a transaction coordinator / listing manager. And then I have quite a few agents in Austin. I guess how many agents? 1, 2, 3, 4 agents in Austin. And then one of my agents has a showing assistant because he's selling quite a few homes every month. He's selling over 6 homes a month. And then I've got an ISA, right? And then I have my partners in Houston, Dallas, Minneapolis, and yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
Grow taking from your first year trying to make 15,000 to where you are now. Just out of curiosity, did you follow the model or did you break the model at all?
So no, of course I made tons of mistakes along the way. The nice thing about Jay is he's let me make a lot of my own mistakes, and I'm very stubborn. So, yeah, so I always kind of want to do my own thing. And so I did hire some admin help right away. So I think I did a good job there. I didn't really hire a buyer agent the right way. I just wanted, I was like a working mom. I didn't really want to spend as much time with buyers. So I pretty much messed that up. I mean, I've done an okay job. Yeah, I've had some good coaching at home, but it definitely hasn't been perfect. And the reality is, if you think about the model, right? The model is no one person's business, right? That person doesn't exist. The MREA, the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, that doesn't exist. That book was written after interviews with 100 agents who were netting $1 million. They were all doing it in different ways, right? And so at the end of the day, your business is your business. But if you want to have a business where you net $1 million and you have leverage in your life, then follow the model, right? I've always had more leverage just because I want more of my time back. So I've always made less money and hired more people because I like having my time, right? So your business is your business. You need to know your numbers, right? You need to know why you're, netting less. You need to pay attention to all that. But the reality is the model is really is no one person. It's an amalgam of 100 people. And so it gives you structure for you to create a business, but your business can be different, but you have to know why. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, guys, I actually have to run, but it was so good to see you all. Hi, Dawn. Good to see you. Jenny, everyone. Thank you for having me, and go out and be awesome.
Well, thank you. We appreciate your time. We know that you are very busy, and we will most definitely find your podcast. So congratulations.
Yeah. Thanks. Have a good one, guys.
Thanks, Wendy.
See you guys.